In this video, we will be covering your questions. So this is the Thomas and Marnik's Game Dev Advice show, I think the name was?
Exactly.
Yes.
I'll insert a cool jingle now and like some audience clapping. We asked you, what are your biggest problems that you're dealing with? What is something that you're like, hey, Thomas and Marnik, you kind of just need like a big bro or a little bro. Yeah. I guess often you guys are older than us. Like to give you some advice.
We are still the big bro though.
Yeah, definitely. We have a bunch of questions and we're just gonna go through them. And the first question we got is it worth finishing a game that you predict won't sell? Like a puzzle platformer, for example, just to get the experience? Or would it be better to just ditch the idea and just chase after whatever trendy genre Chris Crisostomo, this is how to market the game, suggests to focus on? Tell me, big bro.
I mean, it's gonna be really funny if we disagree on it and it's like the two older brothers fighting, no, you have to do this. I think it's worth it. Because
to what? To ditch it or
no,
to...
I think it's worth it to finish the game, even if you know it won't sell. If you already have done...
But how far are you in?
Yeah, it depends how far in you are. But if you're like 70% there, I would finish it, because nothing will prepare you for releasing a game like releasing a game. You will learn so much from pressing that stupid green button on Steam that you will never have like even thought about. Like the feedback from players, just how it is to actually release a game, even if it won't sell, I think is a massive first step.
I think at the end of the day, a big part of game development, like making the game is just a small part of game development. And even the fact that you realize that, hey, right now what we're doing isn't the good move, like we shouldn't be making puzzle platformers. I think if you notice, I think I talked about this. I'm always going to be pointing at previous videos, I think, because
you have like 150 or so.
280 or something.
200, oh, never mind.
It's like, once you realize that your project is about to like, you know, because you know that the game is not going to be a success, which is going to impact your motivation as well. Because it's like, no matter how much time and effort you put into it, you know that it's not going to be perfect. So you're not going to love it as much. And you kind of have this internal clock of, okay, I have like 2 months now to get this out of the door before you'll probably kind of burn out, because like shiny object syndrome is super strong now. Like you said, should I just chase the next trend? Are you gonna make the next supermarket together or whatever? You can do that, but still first finish whatever you're doing now. And I think, yeah, maybe it won't reach that final scale that you had originally planned for, but I think that's fine. Going through that release cycle, so many of our audience, I don't get this why, still doesn't want to market their game. And it's like, just give it a shot, just try it. There's like a lot of people who release their game and they have zero coverage on YouTube. If you're releasing the game with like no people having played the game on YouTube even, don't do it. Delay it until you've got some form of more marketing, basically.
Yeah, so I guess in summary, depends how far along you are. If you are just in the beginning progress, probably scrap it. Otherwise, release it, because you will learn a lot of the non-programming and art stuff.
Now, what do you think of that second part? Should he just, for his next game, chase whatever is the new trend or whatever it is that Crisostomo says he should make?
As always, it depends. What is your goal with being a game dev? There are people in the comments often that say, you should just make the game that you enjoy playing and that's it. And I mean, that's kind of true. But if it's your full-time job, you kind of want to make money, so you should chase trends probably.
I've told this story on stream, I think once, about how I once had a call with Crisostomo. And I asked him like, okay, this was when we were developing Songs Over Jade, our beautiful game. And he straight up told us basically this situation. He was like, look, I can give you all the marketing advice you can give, like you can get. This game will not sell because you chose the bad genre and you chose a bad art style. Like your art style is nowhere near good enough to sell. And then I asked him as well of like, okay, what do you think we should make then? Because that is the thing, Crisostomo, he does this for a job. Like he focuses on companies, not hobbyist devs. He just told us, make horror games or make, back then was like what Playway is making, make those simulators. And I'm like, but I don't know your team is like good at that. And he's like, well, that's a management problem. That's not like his problem. Do you know that if you want to do this as a job, then yeah, you kind of have to follow the money to a certain degree.
Yeah.
I'm assuming if you started with a puzzle platformer, you're not planning on making super high amounts of money to begin with from game development. It's more of a thing of like, hey, if I can get it, that would be nice. I don't think you just have to chase whatever is the top selling trend on Steam, basically.
But if you want to eat, it might be better.
You can go for a middle one as well.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
My point is more, you
need
very
to
much depends on what boat you're in.
Yeah.
Next question. Hi, Thomas and Marnix. I am a solo hobbyist and plan on releasing 5 games. between brackets, he says, hear me out, because that's a great start. Spend Quarter 1 on a little platformer just to release a game, learn some basics, and just put it on itch.io. In Q2, I want to spend 3 months making 3 small games, either mobile games or games similar to UPT. Then Q3 and Q4, spending time creating a horror game or something that should do well on Steam. My question is, do you think this is a good idea? Should I just focus on making them 1-month projects throughout the year? Wow.
I think you're
overly ambitious.
I think you're also not realizing the difference between you and us.
What is this? Is this like a flex?
No, it's not a flex, but
we are multiple people.
This is something, you're not the first one basically who has come to me once again with this thing of, they saw UPT and it's like, oh, UPT made 20k so far after like a month of dev time. I want to do a UPT as well. 1, you say you're solo. We were not solo. 2, you say you're a hobbyist. We were not hobbyists. We were working on this pretty close to full time as well.
I think we can just say full-time.
Yeah.
At least that month it was full-time or more.
When we say it took a month to make that game, it did in fact take a full-on month to make it, as in like full-time work almost. I think even more. There were like, I know the last week when I was doing the level design, it was wake up at 7 a.m. and go to sleep at like 9 p.m. and all the time in between it was just making the level. That is probably like the same amount of hours you have in a week to spend on like a game. I did that in a single day. And that is not to flex, but that is to clarify how hard it is to actually make those small games.
I mean, there are examples of multiple YouTubers even that tried the same things, I assume after they saw UPT.
I mean, we can't even do it again.
I mean, we probably can if we have the good idea.
Maybe, but that's also the thing, you need to come up with those ideas
exactly.
as well, because making a 15-minute prototype in a month is easy, but making it big enough so that you can actually genuinely charge money for it and people won't feel like they've been ripped off, that is another hard part. I think, let alone of the 5 ideas, I think honestly like 5 ideas, it's pretty noble still. The second problem I think is your timing is completely off.
Yeah.
Where in Q1 you want to do a little platformer, that should be like a game you do in like less than a month, I feel, the little platform, instead of a whole 3 months. And then you want a Q2, spend 3 months making 3 games. You have to remember, Q2, you're still learning game development. Like, the later we are in the timeline, the more you're going to know. And I feel like making mobile games or games similar to UPT is still very big of a scope. And then you want to spend 6 months, the final 6 months of the year.
I also think it's a mistake, by the way, to release games on a different platform.
Like mix mobile and...
mix mobile and Steam. I would, if you're actually want to do this like quote unquote the good way, I think you should first of all focus on one platform. So far we have not released on anything else than Steam. Hopefully that changes sometime soon, but for now all of our experience is there. And I mean, if you just like the experience you have from mobile games, the way you market it, for example, is so much different.
Fun fact, there's a video you can see right there where I talk about why I don't like mobile games.
Don't you just have to record that like in an... Do you still have to record that?
I recorded that yesterday.
Okay, never mind. I didn't say anything. But yeah, you can't always transfer those skills between platforms, is what I'm trying to say. So if you want to do this, I would do a couple of things. First of all, do the platformer quicker, make less ideas, give yourself a bit more time for the games in between, and always release on the same platform.
Yeah, and I think like if you really want to do 3 months, 3 small games, you almost have to make 3 times the same game basically, where you have
also,
a template.
You probably can't release on Steam. Sorry to interrupt you, but you have 2 weeks that your store page needs to be up. UPT had to be submitted basically like week 1 or week 2, so we could actually release the game in that month.
It's genuinely dumb to try and market the game. Like at the end of the day, the reason that UPT was made in a month was also because we had a flight to Japan to catch and we just wanted to chill when we were there. So it was like, no matter what, we have to release this game. But if we looked at the wish list we launched, that was like 300, 400 or whatever, genuinely, objectively, we should have said, okay, the game is done, but we're not pressing the release button. We need to market this more. But we were like, yeah, we have this plane to catch. Goodbye. So we still pushed out the game, and it's still, luckily we came with, the marketing did come true, but it was super, super last minute. I think I submitted the store page literally the first day. I took our unicycle asset and I took like the demo scene of the asset pack with the city, and I just dragged in editor the unicycle around, took screenshots, uploaded it, and that was it, just so I could already get that approval, because Steam can take 5 business days. And then if there's one mistake, you have to resubmit it, and that's another 5 business days that you're gonna have to wait.
If you don't do it day one, then that's basically you can't release in that month anymore.
Yeah.
Because that's 14 days if you're unlucky.
I think it could work better if you're like your little platformer, make it in a month, and then do like 3 times 3 months, and then use the last, like, what is it, 3 months again or something? No, 3 times 2 months. So we're at 7 months now. Huh. Yeah. Spend more time per game, I think. And I think also reflect on, can I really make a game in 2 months with how much time I have available and the skills that I have actually? Probably you could push out like some horror backroom slop, but it's like, I don't want you to push out horror backroom slop. That's always what I say. Make small games, but don't make shit games. It's kind of what it comes down to. And I feel like if you're gonna try and push out 3 games in 3 months, you're gonna be dangerously close to that make shit games direction instead of small games. Next question I have. As an indie game dev studio, a website is a must-have. You are so wrong. I am planning to grab a name change suite for all my needs. I don't know what that means exactly. What do you use as a domain registrar, hosting, mail server, etc.? Is it a suite?
I don't think it's necessary. Like, I like our website and I want to push people to our website, but it's not happening.
I hate the website.
I don't mean visually like. I mean, I like that we have one. We get no traffic.
No, we get traffic. You know, the only traffic we get is from viewers who are like, I want to do an internship with you, and they use the contact form on our website.
Yeah, okay, but I don't see that as actual
traffic.
That's not the traffic I hope for. Like, we have a cool resources page that I hope that one day push people to. My dream is to make it like a hub. It's not happening anytime soon. Like, and we have an audience of like 38,000 people. I don't know what audience you have, dear viewer who submitted this, but chances are you don't have a YouTube channel that the size of us, basically. So I just wouldn't bother.
Regardless, if you want to know the stuff we use, it's fine. Like, I think Kevin the custom emails is worth it though.
Oh yeah, true. That's just professional.
The registrar we use, oh god, I hope this isn't like social engineering to dox us. We use Internet BS. It's kind of just my favorite. I've been using it for like 8 years or whatever. They're pretty cheap. And they have mail hosting as well. So we have our mail hosting through our registrar. The website we use is Squarespace separately. I don't like it. I got it for you. The thing is, it's not as easy as the build it beautiful ads make it seem. So that's a bit meh as well. And then hosting, yeah, we use like a mix of Squarespace, and then we also have a bunch of other services that we just self-host because I have a big old server.
The Bite Me Game Awards had a better website, and it was just
static AI generated.
Yeah.
I don't know if because that was just single page though. There's a difference in scaling. You could probably try something like a WordPress as well, but genuinely it doesn't matter. Please don't have a website.
Focus on your game.
Something that I have heard people talk about of like what they did is they use something called Card. I think CARRD, card.io, and it's like $9 a year, and it's like pretty simple single page, but you can do all of your links. You can use it as a hub, kind of like a more advanced link tree.
Oh yeah, it's
website side
like
stuff.
All my links, link tree. Whatever.
Yeah, kind of like that. I think if you really want something, look into that, but really it doesn't matter that much. Just go with whatever is like cheapest for like your email hosting probably and your domain. But I think the website, really don't spend time on it. You can use like your itch.io page even, I think, as a pretty decent website. Like you can style it pretty nice. I think you can even put custom HTML on your itch.io page for the most part. Use those things, I would say, instead. Okay, so this next one we kind of covered partially in the first question, but how do you decide if you should move on from a project or double down to finish it based on community feedback? So this is not a case of it's a bad genre. So after trailers, screenshots, and marketing, I've done a prototype, I've got some wishlist, I improved the game based on feedback, and I got to 1,000 wishlists without a demo. Wow, this sounds like my new course. Buy my course, you can get 1,000 wishlists without a demo. Only a trailer, screenshots, and outreach. The game looks like it will take another 1 to 2 years. Getting wishlists is slow and hard work. I need to fight for each one. It looks financially not viable yet. There is some interest. Not sure how to decide to move on or finish it.
How I see it, at least, when we are working on a game, let's take Songs of Nevermade. It is basically very business oriented, and that is just return on investment and opportunity cost. That sounds very boring to like 99% of the people watching this, but that is actually how I look at it.
Do you also forecast and the guy's gonna pull out like the whiteboard now?
Let me just, I'll spare you guys that. But for real, I think it's important to think like if you think 1 to 2 years is what you need to finish this game, think about first of all, the current state of the game. Is that 1 to 2 years worth it? Will that give you if you work for it for like a year, will it double or triple the amount of sales you get? That's a very big question to ask yourself, because that's not always the case by far. I think you made a video like the time you spend on a game does not equal success, or like how good it is. It doesn't scale linearly. And also think about the opportunity cost. So that 1 to 2 years that you spend on your game, that you are investing here, if that doesn't pay off, that's also 1 or 2 years that you couldn't spend on another game. I'm a firm believer that, at least when you start for indies, when you try to make it in this world as a small studio, you should just release more games and not bet everything on one. A game can always bomb. Like when we had the Bite Me Game Awards, there was this game in there that I thought looked really good. It was like this RPG, and it said they were like, yeah, we worked X amount of years on it, but it flopped. And it was like, well, they had like 400 reviews and it was positive, and that's quite good, but it's not 7 years good.
I feel like you didn't really answer. You just went on a rant, and you didn't really answer his question and his like advice. What would you do? You've got 1,000 wish lists and you've got a prototype that you're like kind of happy with, but it's like, if I want to make this a full game, it's gonna take some time. I think once again, let's begin with, why are you in game development? Are you like soulless corporate Thomas here, looking at return on investment, looking at
I just want to make sure my lovely employee gets fed.
Maximizing shareholder value and whatnot? Or is this a project that, you're doing as a hobby? The thing is, if you're getting 1,000 wish lists already this early into development...
Yeah, you're doing something well.
You're doing something great, right? Like, a lot of people launch their games with less than 1,000 wish lists, and it is after years of development and trying to market it and all of that. So I think don't discard it, but I don't think it means like, I have 1,000 wish lists, I now have to be like contractually obligated to release the game either. I think it's like, just does this game really need to take 2 years to release? That's a long time.
Maybe you can just reevaluate your scope, If it's now a prototype, maybe let's summarize it once again.
Okay. You're not gonna go on a rant, perfect. I think reevaluate your scope. I think what you have is really beautiful and precious and sacred, and it's amazing, especially the fact that you have the 1,000 wish lists. But I think like 2 years is a lot of time. You can get like 2 babies in 2 years. And like, I feel like you should be able to release 1 game in the same time. It creates 2 human lives. Okay, I don't know if this metaphor is making sense, but it takes time, definitely. But I don't think it takes that much time. I think take another reevaluation. One very fun thought experiment that I often do with Thomas and William, and I think William absolutely hates it, is when we go to, I think you also hate it, when we do our weekly Bite Me course, because both of you are working on different games, and it's like, okay, gun to your head, Thomas, I give you William's game now, and I tell you, like, you have 2
He hates it
with
a passion.
You have 1 or 2 weeks to release this. What do you do? I think something like this could work, where it's like, gun to the head, you have to release this within less than 3 months, or I am going to Minecraft your dog, let's say. The question then is, would the game still be able to be released? And it's like, not that you have to release it, but it's like, you probably could, if you really wanted to, make a smaller version of the game that was still pretty nice.
Yeah, it just gets you in like the the mindset where can I cut corners without sacrificing the core experience of the game? Like, there's a lot of fluff in a lot of games.
Like, why does it take 2 years? Is it because you're spending 1.5 years on handcrafting all of the assets? Are you accounting even then for the fact that you'll probably get faster over time at making assets? I think all of those things kind of add up. I wouldn't immediately discard this one, unless it is a 2D platform. And actually, if you got 1,000 wishes on a 2D platform, you're still doing great as well. But I think you're going to have to do a bit more just planning and seeing like, hey, can we make this shorter? Because I think you can turn this into a reality.
That was a very long summary of us. We did great.
Anyways, this one is for you, Thomas.
Oh, balancing solo game dev and other aspects of life. Specifically for someone just starting university and already has a game that's about halfway done for early access release.
So your game is like 20% done. If it's halfway done for early access release, I feel
10%
like
done.
Yeah, 10%, I think. It's nowhere near done. I'm sorry.
But I love your positivity. Good job.
I don't know if I'm the best person to... Like, let's strengthen the parasocial relationship a bit with our audience, Thomas. How were you in university when you first went to university?
Oh, I was the best student.
Really?
I went to every college class.
Uh-huh.
At least once. In the year.
I was waiting for this one to come.
It's hard to balance it. I think from when I was very young, I already was very into entrepreneurship, making apps, creating games, everything. And
You partied your entire year of university.
That's not true. I worked on Sled.
Really? You combined sled with partying?
Yeah. There's a video about the game somewhere on our channel.
You failed university your first year because of that game?
I fixed almost everything in Twidizit. It was like I had like 10 or 11 or 12 retake exams. And then I was like, okay, maybe this 1 week in the year, I actually need to study.
I guess this is proof that, you know, you can enjoy university. I think I was the opposite. So in Belgium, it takes 3 years to complete your bachelor's degree. It takes most people 4 years though, because of, hey, you fail a class and then you have to like do an extra year. I did everything, never had to retake any exam.
He's flexing.
I had, like magna cum laude, whatever. I never went out. I worked like, you know, I was a good boy. I just studied and I went to every single class and I did every assignment and I was like, hoo-hoo, smart, whatever. At the end of the day, like, does it matter? We're still here together. The fact that you partied for a year and I just studied, don't worry about it too much. I think, okay, going maybe a bit outside of like the whole hustle culture, I think there's too much pressure almost of like, you're like what, 19, 20 years old? It's like, bro, you're like 2 years old at the end of the day because you couldn't do much before you were 18. I don't think you need to expect to be like, oh, this 70-year-old guy already has $1 million a month business, whatever. Look at him flex his Lambos. It's like, don't get too like involved by that. A lot of comments are also like, oh my God, how are you guys so young? I feel so old and like such a failure. It's like, it really doesn't matter.
No, you can do it anytime. And I honestly think like for a lot of people, university is like one of the most fun times of their life. So I don't think you should over-focus on it. I think we are also both bad examples. So we are probably not the best to give advice on this. Do whatever feels right for you. That's, I think, the only answer to this.
That's wow, what a loser answer.
I mean, what should I say? Yo, you should not work on game dev anymore. Enjoy your life, bro. Or say, what? University? Screw that shit.
Drop out.
Yeah, drop out. You just focus solely on game dev. Just buy your course.
I hope you're not studying game dev at university. I hope you're studying something else, though. I think don't do an early access release in university. Because the moment you do early access, you're going to have people breathing down your necks for content updates and whatever. And it's like, guys, I have like 15 exams. They do not give a shit.
And if it's a bit successful, it's the easiest excuse to drop out.
I think it depends on where you're from as well. I think don't worry too much. There will always be balancing issues and you're going to have to make sacrifices at points. You can't do everything. That is a downside. You can't and go party and go study and date all of the girls that there are at your university and like go and release games as well and make devlogs and all of that stuff. And it's like, no, something is gonna have to give. And I think, you know, game dev probably shouldn't be your #1 ultimate priority right now, I think. It's cool if you have like time for it over summer break and whatever to do projects, but I don't think go for early access releases and things like that.
See it as a hobby.
Yeah, keep it as a hobby for now because you're going to have enough grind set to still come in the rest of your life. Another question we got, and I think this is a really interesting one that we have some experience with, especially you, is what do you feel is better for the game development process? Focus on smaller individual parts of a game like a shop system according to a defined plan, and after all of those are like standalone implemented, like connect them, or focus development through the player journey and then develop the game actions according to an experience that changes as you are developing the game, or just a mix of both approaches. Do you get what I mean with I think you know?
Okay, how I usually approach what mechanics I try to prioritize is, I think, from like the most top-down view, where it's like, this is the most important part of the game. For example, with Magical Guardians, when I started, what is the first thing I did? It was work on bullets, work on network.
Let's take a step away from Magical Guardians. I think Guild Architect is a much better example of this. Because Guild Architect was very mechanics driven. A lot of different things, like we had, for example, we had our gambling table, we had our tavern, we had the actual quest grading, we wanted to do like loot boxes. And I think there, we definitely did some mistakes probably, but there we did, I think, the isolated approach, right?
Yeah, we did it isolated, but I think the biggest struggle we had with Guild Architect is, first of all, it's a very mechanic-driven game, and William and I worked on different things. So while William was working on the core quest system, which is probably the first thing you should make, by the way,
Should you make it
Either or.
first because it's a mechanic, or because it's the first thing that the player will interact with? If we go
It's
to
the core loop.
Okay, so it's like the player journey, basically, like he says now.
yeah.
You're not like, I'm gonna make the shop mechanic. I'm making the shop mechanic because that's gonna be when the player starts the game. It's going to be the very first thing that they'll interact with.
I don't necessarily mean what the first thing you interact with. I mean the core of your game. So everything basically revolves around the quest grading in Guild Architect. And if that's the core, the USP, the whatever you want to call it, I think that should be made first.
Then why did we focus on other mechanics as well when the core
William
wasn't solid?
Because William was making it, and I had to do something else.
Okay, so it was just like we can't have two cooks in the same mechanic, basically. Okay, I see. We're learning new things every day.
In the meanwhile, I worked on like the grid system, so you could place things in the environment. Worked on adventurers, all those things. And those things are quote-unquote important, but I think they all take a back burner from what is the core mechanic of the game, which is the quest grading.
I think you have two schools of thoughts at the end of the day, and I think both have pros and cons. My gut feeling from what we've done so far with all previous games is that from now on, you should immediately already integrate things together. Because especially in these mechanic-heavy games, often a single mechanic standalone isn't going to be fun enough. It is about connecting all of the different parts together, and you can't do blind faith development of, oh, I'm making this mechanic, my shop mechanic or whatever, and then I have an inventory mechanic somewhere else, and they're not connected yet, but I'm assuming that once everything is implemented and I do connect them, then it's going to be fun. And I think that is extremely risky because you can't test it basically. Whereas if you already have that entire flow and the basic integration of, okay, this is what they're gonna do. Step 1, buy stuff. Step 2, sell it. Step 3, make customers happy, whatever, I don't care. But have 3 rudimentary but interlinked pieces that follow the core loop, I think is better, and then iterate, expand on those individual mechanics so that, hey, there's different categories of items, whatever now. Instead of having this big checklist of, okay, this is every feature that my shop should have, let me implement it, and then I'll just test it out later on.
Make sure that you have something playable that somehow represents what you want the game to be. And that's, I think, the only correct way. So what journey is best for your game, figure it out yourself. But
great advice. Just figure it out.
No, but I give him a guideline. And that is, just think about what you need to do to make your game, even if it's super basic, if it's ugly, whatever, to make the core ID playable. In Guild Architect, it would have been the quest system. In UPT, it would be basic platforming on your unicycle. In Magical Girl Guardians, it would be shooting bullets and killing an enemy. And after that, you can add all the other cool things, like more level design in UPT, the adventures in Guild Architect, the upgrades in Magical Girl Guardians. All those things are very important to your game, but they are not. But they are not the core.
Sure thing, buddy. And then our final question. This is one that I feel like is making references, shall we say. I don't think the person is actually dealing with this, but I figured, hey, let's do a little hypothetical. I sold my house, I have 2 kids, my wife and I are full-time game devs for almost 3 years now, and we just recently published our first game, but it was a financial disaster. Should we keep on doing game dev? We still have 2 other projects in the work, or is it best if we find a real job? I think there was
game dev is a real job.
Ooh, yeah, it's just not a high-paying job. Yeah, find a real job. You sound like my parents now.
I mean, I said it's a real job. I'm on your side.
No, I mean the guy who has admitted this. So, still have 2 other projects in the works. First game was a financial disaster. Let's just assume, in this case, that we know what, like, the situation we're dealing with, right? You've released a game. You were like, you started developing on one game, and then after a year, like, actually, this is way too big of a scope, and I'm not good enough of a game developer yet. Let's start something new. Let's make a smaller scoped game. And then that smaller scope game has that same problem where it also balloons, and we don't end up releasing it. And then you get that third game, and it's like, once again, okay, we have to make a game so we can make some money. We make that smaller scope game. It still kind of balloons, but you end up releasing it. Problem is, this is only the first time that you're releasing a game now. So it's like, there's a lot of stuff you don't know yet. Like, for example, launch discounts, not releasing right before a sale. All of that, like how to do your marketing, whatever. I think what we're maybe a bit too good at with Bite Me Games is just being like, okay, you know that game that we spent 6 months of development time on? It's gone. We're not going to deal with it anymore. Let's move on, because we know that it's not going to work out most likely. Let's just drop everything and next day start a new project. We did that with Songs of Everjade, where we spent like 2.5 months, 3 months on it. And it could have been like, we could have spent another year on it, I think, if you really wanted to, but we were like, actually, this is not going to be it.
Guild Architect.
Guild Architect. We also were like, actually, we're not happy with this anymore. We kill it. I think also Ashes of Lyra. This is old deep lore that never really...
We never really started on it.
But I had that really angry conversation at Gamescom, remember? 2 years ago with you on the car ride home, where I was also like, fuck it, we're not doing this. We spent like a month on it.
Oh, okay, yeah, okay, but that was not really related to the game. That was related to
other things.
Other things. Yeah.
I think it's better to just be like, okay, we spent a lot of time on this project, but I think it's better to just realize, like, if you want to do it good, you're just going to have to restart, I think, from zero.
I think the
moment you stop developing like day by day on the same project, you just forget everything about it. You forget your vision, most of the things. I think going now back to your 2 previous projects wouldn't be the right move. I think now it would just be, okay, what did we learn from our game's release, this game's release? And with that, let's just start anew. Start something new and keep going at it that way.
Yeah, I think one of the most important skills a game dev should have is resilience, because you will have a lot of setbacks. Another thing is having the guts to see that you were wrong and cut your losses and just move on. And if that's the case with another game of us, it will happen again. And I think that's the only correct way to deal with quote unquote failed projects.
Yeah, just one day. It's always like in a single day we decide, like we wake up and it's like, I don't like this game anymore.
Yeah, it usually like builds up, and at some point it's like, you know what? I've been thinking about it for 2 weeks or whatever.
Yeah, and then you bring it up to the team.
Then you probably know, if you've been thinking about it for 2 weeks, that there is a reason behind it, you know?
But I think also just from the fact, like, if we were to go back now to Guild Architect, because we released UPT, and it's like, okay, yeah, actually, no, we still think Guild Architect is good, like, let's assume we didn't cancel it, there would just be issues as well with, I think, the fact that we haven't touched that code base in such a long time, and you just forget everything you did, kind of, and you forget the original vision. I think it's just better than at that point, if you really liked Guild Architect, for example, to just remake it. Like, from the ground up, look at, okay, what did we learn from the previous projects as well? Don't just discard them, do still learn from them, do post-mortems, even if it's just for you internally, and learn from that and move on. I think would be the way. And honestly, like, is it best if you find a real job? It's not, you know, the indie dream of quitting your job and I told my boss whatever, but if you listen to a lot of like interviews with really super successful and right now crazy rich game developers, like for example developers of Dwarf Fortress, there's a beautiful podcast, I'll link it down below, where they talk for like 3 hours about their development process. The guy worked at like a gas station for 20 hours a week for like 5 years during development, because that was the only way he could make it happen. And now he's rich enough to buy like 7 yachts if he wants. Game development, it's not crypto. It's not something where you can get super rich immediately overnight. It is something that, yeah, I've had people like tell me as well, like, oh, I think you should just get a second job to keep sure that you can keep doing game. And it's like, right now, I'm in the privileged position of not having to do that, but that is because we have a really good Patreon. We have all of you watching. That is something that most game developers don't have.
Yeah, and it's also something we built up.
Yeah.
UPT, maybe even a bit of Forge Industries still. The YouTube, the Patreon. We've been doing this for 3 years?
Yeah, it takes a long time before you see a lot of results, and I think you don't need to feel like, oh, if I'm not a successful self-sustaining game developer after 6 months of being full-time, I think that is fine. I think that is normal. Yeah. It's just, once again, like that hustle culture of those 17-year-old guys making millions of dollars, supposedly. Don't get too influenced by that, I think, is what it comes down to. Yeah. It's not that easy, because if it was, I wouldn't have to make these videos if I already had my gazillion dollars.
I think in summary, should you find a real job? It depends on your financial situation, and it depends if you still see the good in game dev. Yeah, do you still want to take the risk?
It can be miserable as well, I feel, to have that release and it go badly after you spend so much time in it and you had all of these beautiful thoughts and things about game development, and it just isn't true, unfortunately. It doesn't have to be the end.
No.
But I think it should be your final warning call. Yeah. Where right now,
it should be a wake-up call. Show your resilience, but if that's still not enough, you should probably admit defeat.
Now is the now or never point. Like, either you now have like a year or less to actually make it work, which is doable because you're already 3 years in at this point. Like I said, the hardest part is that first year, 2 years surviving that. It only should get easier from there on. But if the next one also doesn't do well, I think you're not capable of learning enough from but we can't say that.
You can also be unlucky.
Yeah, you can be unlucky. Whatever.
Sometimes in life you can just be unlucky. You can do everything right and still fail.
Yeah.
Same with games.
That's a wise quote. I hope you liked our little advice show, whatever. I don't know.
Don't worry, little bro, we'll do this again sometime. You don't have to miss us.
Who out of us is the big brother and who out of us is the little brother?
I'm older.
Yeah, but...
So you're the little brother.
Mentally, maybe.
I'm also wiser.
Okay, well, the jury is still out on that one.
Are we going to make another poll where it's going to be 50-50 for like a year?
Anyways, thank you very much for watching. We hope you enjoyed it. Apart from that, if you're new here, we upload 2 videos every week talking about game development and the things that we've been learning along the way. If that's something that interests you, head down below and subscribe, because that means Thomas gets more happy. Every time you click the subscribe button, he just goes like a little, like, you know, a Yahoo scream in his like head. Yahoo! So do that. He'll be happy. He'll have to listen to Yahoo the entire time. And we'll see you guys in the next one. Bye!